The conference room feels like a glass cage. Every eye outside the walls is locked on me as Mark Ellison clears his throat and says, "Lauren, this is your termination meeting." My breath catches somewhere between my lungs and my throat. There's a tightness in my chest that makes speaking impossible. Through the transparent walls, my coworkers glance away quickly, pretending they're not watching, but I can see everything reflected in the glass. Their curious faces, their uncomfortable shifting, my own humiliation playing out like a public execution. Mark sits across from me, hands folded on the table, expression calm. Too calm. His voice is smooth, practiced, like he's rehearsed this moment. "You violated company ethics," he continues, sliding a folder toward me. The words hit me like cold water. I know that's a lie. He knows it too. My hands tremble as I reach for the folder, and I catch his eyes for just a second. There's no guilt there, no hesitation. Just calculation. This isn't about ethics. This is about protection, his protection. And I'm the sacrifice. My badge is deactivated before I even reach my desk. My email inbox locked out. The screen flashes, access denied. HR appears at my shoulder, a woman named Patrice with a tight smile and a clipboard. "I'll escort you to collect your things," she says softly, but her tone isn't kind. It's procedural. Cold. I walk through the office in a fog, aware of every whisper that follows me like a shadow. My coworkers don't meet my eyes anymore. Some look busy suddenly, typing frantically at their keyboards. Others huddle together, voices dropping to murmurs as I pass. I can feel their judgment pressing against my back, heavy and suffocating. My body moves on autopilot. Grab the coffee mug with my name on it, the small photo frame of my parents, the stress ball shaped like a brain that someone gave me as a joke. But my mind is spinning, unable to process what's happening. I want to scream that this is wrong, that Mark is lying, that I didn't do anything. But my voice would sound hysterical, desperate. And he would win again. My boss fired me to protect his reputation. That's the truth, plain and brutal. Mark Ellison sabotaged me to cover up the fact that he falsified data in our biggest client report. I stumbled onto his mistake, or maybe it wasn't a mistake at all. Maybe it was intentional. Either way, I became a threat the moment I saw those numbers didn't add up. And threats get eliminated. I can't prove it yet. Not today, not standing here with a cardboard box in my hands and security waiting by the elevator. But the humiliation burning through my chest isn't just anger. It's fuel. I think about the glass conference room, the way Mark's face stayed perfectly neutral as he destroyed my career. I think about my coworkers whispering, already believing whatever story he's planted about me. I think about 6 years of my life poured into this company, erased in a single meeting. I want justice. Not the screaming, chaotic kind. Real justice. The kind that's quiet and undeniable. The kind that leaves no room for doubt. And I'm going to get it. My name is Lauren Hale. I'm 32 years old, and until 2 hours ago, I was senior project manager at Danton Analytics. 6 years of loyalty, late nights, sacrificed weekends, all of it erased with a few sentences delivered in a glass cage while the entire office watched. I used to believe in fairness. I used to think that if you worked hard, kept your head down, played by the rules, the truth would eventually win. That good work spoke for itself. That honesty mattered. But truth doesn't stand a chance when power controls the microphone. Mark has been with Danton for 12 years. He's senior leadership, trusted, respected. I'm just a project manager who asked the wrong questions. When it's his word against mine, there's no contest. Everyone will believe him. They already do. I can see it in how quickly people turned away from me, how easily they accepted the narrative he built. But here's what Mark doesn't know: I don't give up. I've spent my entire career solving problems, finding patterns, building solutions from broken pieces. And this? This is just another problem to solve. 3 weeks ago, everything was normal. I was reviewing our quarterly client report before submission, something I'd done dozens of times. Numbers, charts, projections, it was routine work. Then I spotted something odd. Our revenue for the Sterling Tech account showed a massive spike, $2.4 million more than the previous quarter. But when I cross-referenced it with the actual invoices and payment records, the numbers didn't match. The spike didn't exist. It was phantom revenue, inflated on paper but not backed by real transactions. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a small typo. This was a serious discrepancy that would mislead our board and investors. I thought maybe it was a system glitch, a data entry error that someone could fix quickly. So, I did what I thought was right, I went to Mark privately. I knocked on his office door, report in hand, expecting we'd solve it together quietly. He looked up from his computer, smiled too wide, and listened as I explained. When I finished, his expression didn't change. "Let leadership handle leadership," he said smoothly. That should have been my first warning. The next morning, the corrected report appeared in my inbox. I opened it, relieved that the issue had been fixed. Then my blood went cold. The phantom revenue was still there. But now, my digital signature was attached to the bottom of the document. My name, my approval stamp, my responsibility. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. I never signed off on this. I never approved these numbers. But there it was, official and documented, as if I had personally verified every figure. I immediately went back to Mark's office, panic rising in my throat. "Mark, I didn't approve this version." "My signature," he cut me off with a raised hand. "Lauren, you flagged the issue, we reviewed it with finance, everything's fine. Your concerns were noted." His tone was dismissive, like I was being paranoid. But I wasn't imagining this. Someone had attached my name to false data. And when this blew up, because it would blow up eventually, I would be the one blamed. I started hearing whispers that same afternoon. 2 analysts in the break room, voices low but not low enough. "Did you hear? Mark saved the Sterling report. Lauren almost tanked it with bad data." When HR called me in, I thought maybe it was about the Sterling account audit. Maybe someone else had noticed the discrepancy. Maybe I'd get a chance to explain what really happened. Instead, I walked into a small, windowless room where a woman named Patrice sat with a too-tight bun and a folder thick with papers. Her smile was practiced, professional, empty. "Lauren, we've received complaints about your conduct," she said, sliding the folder across the table. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "Complaints? From who?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. She didn't answer directly. Instead, she opened the folder and started listing incidents: missed communication, unprofessional behavior, data mishandling. Each accusation was vague enough to sound plausible but specific enough to sound damning. And each one was tied to projects Mark oversaw. I tried to defend myself, to explain, but Patrice's face remained neutral. She wasn't here to listen. She was here to document. The meeting ended with a formal warning placed in my file. As I left, I saw Mark in the hallway, leaning against a cubicle, chatting casually with another manager. He glanced at me briefly, and I swear I saw the corner of his mouth lift. He'd set the trap perfectly. That night, I sat in my car in the dark parking lot until after midnight. The dashboard lights blurred through tears I didn't even realize I was crying. The office building loomed above me, windows dark except for a few scattered lights where people worked late. I used to be one of those people. I used to love this job, love the challenge, love the feeling of accomplishment when a project succeeded. Now, all of that was poisoned. The worst part wasn't losing my job, not yet anyway. The worst part was realizing that everyone I'd worked with, everyone I'd trusted, had watched this happen and done nothing. Some of them probably believed Mark's version. Others probably suspected the truth but stayed silent to protect themselves. Either way, I was alone. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "How was work, honey?" I couldn't answer. How do you explain that your career is being destroyed by someone you once respected? How do you admit that you walked into a trap without seeing it? I leaned my head against the steering wheel and let the silence wrap around me. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I'd figure out what to do. Tonight, I just needed to survive the weight of this. The next morning, I wasn't crying anymore. Something had shifted overnight. The helplessness and shock had burned away, leaving behind something colder and sharper. Resolve. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and a notepad, and I started cataloging everything I could remember. Every email, every meeting, every document that had passed through my hands in the last 3 months. I remembered version histories. I remembered timestamps. I remembered the original Sterling report, the one I'd saved in my drafts folder before Mark corrected it. I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to confront Mark in front of everyone or send angry emails that could be used against me. I was going to build. Carefully, methodically, I would gather every piece of evidence that proved what really happened. And when the moment was right, I would present it in a way that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. Mark thought he'd buried me. He thought I'd either leave quietly or self-destruct publicly. But he didn't know me as well as he thought. I was patient. And I was thorough. Buried in a folder on my personal laptop labeled Old Drafts, I found it, the untouched version of the Sterling client report. The one I'd prepared before Mark made his changes. I opened it with shaking hands, comparing it line by line with the version that had been submitted. There it was. The original report showed Sterling's actual revenue at $7.6 million for the quarter. The submitted version showed $10 million, a $2.4 million inflation. My original report was accurate, backed by invoices and payment confirmations. Mark's version was fiction. But the submitted version had my signature, making it look like I'd approved the false numbers. I took screenshots of everything. The metadata showing when I'd created the original file. The version history showing when changes were made, and from whose computer. Digital footprints don't lie. Mark had logged into the system, modified the numbers, and somehow attached my approval without my knowledge. It was all there, documented and timestamped. I saved everything to 3 separate flash drives and backed it up to a secure cloud account. This was the first piece. But I needed more. I needed to show a pattern, not just a single incident. And I needed someone on the inside who could help me find it. Her name was Erin Cho, finance analyst, sharp as a blade, and quietly bitter. We'd worked together on a few projects, always professional but never close. I knew Mark had taken credit for one of her financial models about a year ago, presenting it to senior leadership as his own work. She'd been furious but stayed silent. Jobs weren't easy to find, and speaking up against someone like Mark was career suicide. I asked her to meet me for coffee at a place far from the office. She hesitated when I texted, but eventually agreed. We sat in a corner booth, and I didn't waste time with small talk. Mark's falsifying data, I said quietly. Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't look surprised. I suspected, she admitted after a long pause. I've seen numbers in his reports that didn't quite match the source documents. Creative math, I called it. But I couldn't prove anything. I slid my laptop across the table and showed her the Sterling report comparison. She studied it carefully, scrolling through the version history, checking the timestamps. When she looked up, her expression had changed. He's been doing this for a while, hasn't he? I nodded. I think so. But I need help proving it. Will you? She stared into her coffee for a long moment. Then she nodded. Over the next 2 weeks, Erin and I became digital archaeologists, carefully digging through layers of reports, presentations, and approval documents. We met in coffee shops, libraries, anywhere but the office. Erin still worked at Danton, so she had access to internal systems I'd lost. Every night, she'd download files to an encrypted drive, and every morning, we'd analyze them together. We found patterns. Lots of them. In the Fletcher Industries report from last year, Mark had inflated project timelines to make his team look more efficient. In the Baxter Solutions pitch, he'd exaggerated cost savings by nearly 40%. In the Morrison Health contract, I stopped. Wait, we weren't supposed to use Morrison anymore. That name's on the banned list. Aaron nodded grimly. Exactly. But it's in our files anyway. Every thread we pulled led back to Mark's fingerprints. Backdated approvals, altered spreadsheets, missing documentation. The deeper we went, the angrier Aaron became. I watched her jaw tighten as she uncovered another falsified number, another manipulated report. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. Anger was messy. Anger made mistakes. I needed precision. One night, Erin hesitated as we sat in her car outside a closed cafe. She'd just handed me another flash drive full of evidence, but her hands were shaking. Lauren, if they find out what we're doing, we're finished. Not just fired, blacklisted. Mark has powerful friends. I looked at her directly. The streetlight cast shadows across her worried face. Erin, we already are finished. He made sure of that the moment we became inconvenient. The only question now is whether we go down silently or whether we take the truth with us. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the internal war playing out behind her eyes. Fear versus anger. Safety versus justice. Finally, she exhaled slowly and nodded. Okay. Let's finish this. That night, we made a plan. We had evidence of data manipulation across at least 7 major client accounts spanning 2 years. We had emails showing Mark pressuring junior staff to adjust numbers. We had version histories proving he'd altered documents after approval. But we needed the right moment to release it all. Going public too early would give him time to spin the narrative or destroy evidence. We needed a stage where the truth couldn't be buried. We needed the board. A company-wide memo appeared in everyone's inbox on Monday morning, annual board audit scheduled for 2 weeks from today. All departments prepare quarterly reports for review. My heart jumped when I saw it. This was it, the perfect opportunity. Mark would have to present his reports directly to the board members, the people who had final authority over the company. If we could get our evidence in front of them during that meeting, he wouldn't be able to deflect or dismiss it. I watched Mark from across the office that day. He was strutting around like a peacock, confident and relaxed, stopping at people's desks to chat casually. He had no idea a storm was building. To him, the board audit was just another chance to showcase his success. Another opportunity to climb higher while standing on other people's work. I opened my calendar and marked the date in red, board audit April 18th. 2 weeks. 14 days to make sure every piece of evidence was airtight, every document verified, every backup secure. Aaron and I worked like we were preparing for war. Because in a way, we were. And this time I wasn't going to lose. Aaron called me late one night, her voice tight with excitement and fear. I found something. You need to see this now. I drove to her apartment, and she met me at the door with her laptop already open. On the screen was a payment record I'd never seen before, an invoice for consulting services billed to a company called Apex Solutions. The amount, $340,000. Who's Apex Solutions? I asked. Aaron pulled up another window. That's the thing, they don't exist. I searched state business registrations, tax records, everything. There's no company by that name. But Danton paid them almost $250,000, and the approval signature is Mark's. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just inflated numbers or creative accounting. This was fraud. Real, prosecutable fraud. We cross-referenced the payment date with Mark's project budgets and found that the money had been pulled from the Fletcher Industries contract. The same one where Mark had claimed massive cost savings. He hadn't saved money. He'd stolen it. We stared at each other across the dim glow of her laptop screen, and I could see the same thought running through both our minds: this was bigger than we'd realized. Much bigger. And much more dangerous. I spent 3 days organizing everything into a single, devastating package. Every document, every screenshot, every email and version history was arranged chronologically and cross-referenced. I created a master folder called Version History and divided it into sections: data falsification, unauthorized payments, pattern of misconduct, timeline of retaliation. Each section had original documents side by side with the altered versions Mark had submitted. Timestamps proved when changes were made and from which computer. Email chains showed Mark pressuring staff to revise numbers. The Apex Solutions payment sat at the center like a smoking gun, complete with banking records Erin had painstakingly obtained through her finance access. I encrypted everything and prepared 2 copies, one on a secure flash drive, one uploaded to a private cloud account that would automatically send to multiple email addresses if I didn't log in within 72 hours. A dead man's switch, just in case. The evidence was perfect. Undeniable. The kind of documentation that couldn't be explained away with charm or excuses. One click, and Mark's entire empire would collapse. But timing was everything. Release it too early, and he'd have time to lawyer up, destroy evidence, or create some counter-narrative. I had to wait until the exact right moment, when the board was watching, when the stakes were highest, when he had no room to escape. The day before the board meeting, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Lauren. Mark's voice, smooth as silk, came through the speaker. I heard you'd been asking around, talking to people. Just wanted to check in. My heart pounded, but I kept my voice steady. Just catching up with old colleagues, Mark. Nothing special. He laughed, but it sounded forced. Good, good. Listen, I hope there are no hard feelings about how things ended. It's all business, you know? Nothing personal. I could hear the smugness dripping through his words. He thought he was untouchable. He thought I was bitter but harmless, probably bad-mouthing him to anyone who'd listen but not actually capable of doing damage. None at all, Mark, I said softly. Water under the bridge. Glad to hear it, he said, and I could practically hear his smile. Take care of yourself, Lauren. He hung up. I sat there for a moment, staring at my phone. Then I almost laughed. He had no idea what was coming. Tomorrow, the board would convene. Tomorrow, Mark would present his glowing quarterly reports with his usual confidence. And tomorrow, I would send one email that would change everything. The board meeting started at 9 a.m. I wasn't invited, obviously, I didn't work at Danton anymore. But Erin was inside, sitting in the back row as a junior finance representative. She'd texted me that morning, he's here. Looks confident. Ready when you are. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, the board meeting livestream pulled up on one screen. They streamed quarterly audits for transparency, though most employees never watched. On the other screen, I had my email draft ready. One subject line, one attachment. Mark took the podium at 9:47 a.m. I watched him smile at the board members, shake hands, charm the room like he always did. He opened his presentation, Exceptional Growth and Strategic Success, Q1 Results. The slides were beautiful, colorful graphs showing revenue increases, cost savings, client satisfaction scores. The board members nodded approvingly. One woman leaned over to whisper something to her colleague, both smiling. Mark was in his element, confident and persuasive, painting a picture of a department running flawlessly under his leadership. At 10:15 a.m., he reached the slide about Sterling Tech, our highest performing account this quarter, he announced proudly. I looked at my email draft one more time. Subject line, for board review only, urgent. Attached, versionhistory.zip. My finger hovered over the send button. Then I clicked it. The email went to every board member simultaneously. 12 people, 12 identical messages hitting their inboxes at the exact same moment. I knew most of them monitored their phones during meetings. Company policy required it for urgent communications. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Mark continued his presentation, talking about projected growth for Q2. Then I saw it through the live stream. One board member glanced at his phone. His expression changed. He opened the email, scrolled for a moment, then tapped the person next to him. She checked her phone. Her eyebrows shot up. Within 2 minutes, 5 board members were staring at their phones instead of Mark's presentation. Mark noticed the shift in attention. His voice faltered slightly. As I was saying, the strategic initiatives we've implemented, the board chairwoman, an older woman named Victoria Brennan, raised her hand. Mr. Ellison, could you pause for a moment? Her tone was polite but firm. Mark froze mid-sentence. Of course. Victoria looked at her colleagues, and some unspoken communication passed between them. We need to review some information that's just come to our attention. Let's take a 15-minute recess. Mark's confusion was visible even through the grainy livestream. Is everything all right? We'll discuss it shortly, Victoria said, standing. The meeting room emptied, board members clustering in the hallway, phones in hand. Through the live feed, I could see Mark standing alone at the podium, looking bewildered. My phone buzzed. Aaron, they know. Oh my God, they know. Within 3 hours, the fallout began. Aaron sent me updates in rapid-fire texts. Audit paused. Mark asked to step out. He's in Victoria's office. Door closed. Security is outside the door. Someone from legal just showed up. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop still open, watching everything unfold through Aaron's eyes. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From relief. From vindication. From the sheer weight of finally being believed. At 2:34 p.m., the company-wide email arrived. I still had access to my personal email, so I saw it. Effective immediately, Mark Ellison has been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. All inquiries should be directed to HR. No details. No explanation. Just that clinical, corporate language that everyone would read between the lines of. I imagined Mark's face when they told him. The confusion turning to panic. The carefully constructed confidence crumbling. Did he think about me in that moment? Did he realize who'd sent that email? Or was he still too busy trying to figure out how to talk his way out of this? Aaron called me that evening, voice shaking. Lauren, they're talking about criminal charges. The Apex Solutions thing, that's embezzlement. Real jail time. I closed my eyes and exhaled slowly. It was bigger than I'd thought. Bigger than either of us had imagined. And it was all unraveling now. 3 days later, the headlines appeared on the company internet and industry news sites. Senior executive under investigation at Danton Analytics. Mark's name wasn't mentioned in the public articles, but everyone inside the company knew exactly who it was. His office stayed dark. His name disappeared from the leadership directory on the company website. HR sent out a vague memo about recommitting to ethical standards and compliance, the kind of corporate speak that said everything and nothing. Aaron told me that people were whispering in the hallways, piecing together what had happened. Some were shocked. Others admitted they'd suspected something was off but hadn't wanted to risk speaking up. A few junior analysts approached Aaron privately, thanking her for finally doing something. They're calling you brave, Aaron said on the phone. Both of us. I didn't feel brave. I felt exhausted. But I also felt something I hadn't felt in weeks, peace. Not happiness, not satisfaction, just peace. The truth was out. The evidence was undeniable. And for the first time since that glass conference room meeting, I could breathe without the weight of injustice crushing my chest. Mark's career was over. I didn't take joy in that, not exactly. But I didn't regret it either. He'd made his choices. Now he lived with the consequences. The email came on a Tuesday afternoon, sender name I didn't recognize, Caldwell Strategic Group. I opened it carefully, half expecting spam. Instead, Ms. Hale, we've been following recent developments in the industry, and we're impressed by your integrity and analytical work. We're currently seeking a senior consultant for corporate ethics and compliance. Would you be interested in discussing an opportunity? I read it 3 times, making sure it was real. They'd seen my work. Not just the scandal, but the actual evidence, the meticulous documentation, the clear analysis, the way I'd built an undeniable case. They wanted that skill set. They wanted me. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I sat with it, letting the possibility settle. For weeks, I'd been so focused on proving the truth that I hadn't thought much about what came after. Now, the after was here, offering itself to me. I called Erin and read her the email. She screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Lauren. That's a top-tier consulting firm. Do you know how many people would kill for that offer? I did know. And I also knew I'd earned it. Not through connections or luck, but through hard work and refusing to let lies stand. I typed a response, I'd be very interested in discussing this opportunity. When would be a good time to talk? Then I hit send. Mark's name disappeared completely. First from the leadership page. I'd already seen that. Then from past project credits, his bio scrubbed from the company history section. His stock options were frozen pending the investigation. The LinkedIn profile that once boasted about his accomplishments went dormant, last activity dated 2 weeks ago. Erin heard through the office grapevine that criminal charges were being considered. The Apex Solutions payment wasn't the only fraudulent transaction. Investigators found 2 more phantom companies, smaller amounts but same pattern. Over $500,000 in total, embezzled over 3 years. The man who'd fired me for ethical violations was now facing actual criminal prosecution for ethics violations. The irony wasn't lost on me. Some people might have felt vindicated, triumphant, maybe even gleeful. I felt tired. And oddly empty. I'd spent so much energy on this, so much focus and determination, that now that it was over, I wasn't sure what to feel. But one thing I knew for certain, I didn't regret it. Not the investigation, not the email, not any of it. Mark had tried to destroy me to save himself. Instead, he'd destroyed himself. That wasn't my fault. That was justice. Weeks later, I passed the Danton Analytics building on my way to a client meeting for Caldwell Strategic. My new job was everything I'd hoped. Challenging, respected, well-paid. I worked with companies to build ethical frameworks and audit systems, helping prevent exactly the kind of fraud Mark had committed. As I walked past Danton's glass entrance, I glanced inside. New faces filled the lobby. People I didn't recognize, moving through the space where I'd once spent 60 hours a week. The company had moved on without Mark, without me, without any of us. Life continued, indifferent to individual dramas. I saw my reflection in the glass, professional blazer, confident posture, briefcase in hand. I looked different than I had 2 months ago. Stronger, maybe. Or just, resolved. I didn't feel anger when I looked at that building. I didn't feel bitterness or longing or regret. I felt nothing except a quiet acknowledgement, that was then, this is now. I straightened my blazer, checked the time on my phone, and kept walking. No need to look back. The past couldn't hurt me anymore. I'd made sure of that. In my new office, a small space with a window overlooking the city, I opened my laptop and created a document. I titled it Lessons Learned and started typing. When someone tries to ruin your name to protect their own, don't chase them down the hallway screaming. Don't explode in meetings or send angry emails. Build proof instead. Build documentation, build evidence, build a case so airtight that lies can't survive in the same room. Build peace with yourself, knowing you did the right thing even when it was hard. And then let truth speak for itself. It's always louder than anger, stronger than manipulation, more lasting than any reputation built on lies. I saved the document and backed it up. Not for Mark. Not for Danton. Not even for Erin, though she'd understand. I saved it for me. A reminder that integrity wasn't about being perfect or never making mistakes. It was about refusing to stay silent when silence meant complicity. It was about standing up for truth even when the cost was high. And it was about knowing that in the end, the evidence always speaks louder than the excuses. I closed my laptop, looked out at the city, and smiled. This was my new chapter. And I was writing it on my own terms.